Greetings from the garage, everyone. My name is Alex, and you are on the Classic Cars Roast channel. Its reputation precedes it, but does the actual car live up to the legend? Spoiler alert, not even close. We're dissecting the 1961 Lincoln Continental, a car that's become a pop culture icon. Yet when you peel back the layers, what do you find? A vehicle that's more about style than substance. A classic that's caught in the crosshairs of nostalgia and reality. The so-called big iron market is heating up, and you might be tempted to drop a small fortune on one of these beauties, but hold your horses. First off, let's talk about pricing. High-quality examples of the 1961 Lincoln Continental are fetching auction prices that defy logic. Think upwards of $50,000 for cars that are barely more than glorified metal boxes. These prices are often tied to ridiculously low mileage, like 97 miles or 3,900 miles. Sure, you could snag one of these for a song if you're willing to accept a pathetically rusted hunk of junk, but if you want that pristine original beauty, prepare to cough up some serious cash. And remember, it's only original once, folks, so don't fall for a repainted body. Game over on that one. Now, the very first impression of the Lincoln Continental is undeniably striking. With its sleek slab-sided body and those infamous suicide doors, it looks like it means business. But take a closer look. The chrome bumpers, they're more about flash than durability, and those panel gaps. Comically thick door seals are trying to hide some pretty dreadful build quality. Inside, the leather bench seats and the full-width instrument panel promise luxury, but the reality is a dashboard that's about as exciting as watching paint dry. And don't get me started on the performance. Under the hood, you've got a ML 430 cubic inch V8 churning out a gross 320 horsepower. Sounds impressive until you realize it's more like a sad, wheezing beast with a 7.6-to-1 compression ratio. It's like the car is begging for help, and honestly, it takes about 10.5 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. That's not speed. That's a leisurely stroll. So, are you really getting a piece of automotive history or just a glorified land yacht that's lost its way? You need to weigh those auction prices against what you're actually getting. This car is a mixed bag, and for me, the flaws overshadow the charm. Would I spend my hard-earned cash on this? Definitely not unless it's an immaculate original piece. What do you think? All right, folks, hold on to your hats because we're diving headfirst into the creation story of the 1961 Lincoln Continental and the era that birthed this beast. Picture this. The early 1960s, a time when America was flexing its muscles, both economically and culturally. The post-war boom had people feeling flush with cash and eager for a taste of the good life. And what better way to symbolize that affluence than with a car that drips luxury like a five-star hotel drips champagne? Enter the Continental, a car that was designed to be the epitome of American opulence. This was the fourth generation, and it was an absolute statement piece, crafted for those who wanted to be seen and admired. Now take a moment to appreciate the design ethos of that time. The slab-sided body style was the rage, and with its distinctive suicide doors, the Lincoln Continental was like a rolling invitation to come aboard and experience the good life. It was a clean, minimalist design that screamed sophistication. But when you look closely, it also whispered secrets of some rather questionable engineering decisions. The horizontal grille with its thin bars was an attempt to convey elegance, yet it didn't quite mask the fact that the car was a massive hunk of iron. This was a vehicle that weighed more than some small countries, and while that might appeal to some, it also meant that maneuverability was pretty much a joke. Let's talk about the engine for a second. Under that long hood lurked a MEL 430 cubic inch V8. Now, don't let me spoil the mood, but with a gross horsepower rating of 320, this thing was no powerhouse by today's standards. And let's be honest, when you look back at the glory days of high-compression V8s, 1970 was the last great year. After that, things went downhill faster than a lead balloon. The torque rating of 465 pound-feet might sound impressive, but in this heavy beast, it barely made a dent in the performance department. 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 10.5 seconds? Seriously? That's a leisurely Sunday drive pace. And don't even get me started on the production quirks. Sure, Lincoln was known for its luxury, but those common rust spots in the trunk and door sills? pathetic for a car of this caliber. The electrical issues that plagued power windows? Just one more nail in the coffin of its reputation for reliability. It's almost as if they thought, let's make it look good on the outside and hope nobody notices the mess inside. In a nutshell, the 1961 Lincoln Continental was born in an era of excess and expectation, but it was a time that also began to sow the seeds of mediocrity in American automotive engineering. The irony? This car, which was meant to embody the pinnacle of luxury, was also a victim of its era's decline. It's fascinating, isn't it? The car was a reflection of its time, both magnificent and flawed. So, what do you think? Is the charm worth the compromise? All right, folks, here we go. Let's dissect the exterior of the 1961 Lincoln Continental. This is where the charm starts to ooze, but don't let that fool you. There's a lot more lurking beneath the surface. First off, the colors. Presidential black, Arctic white, silver mink, and Sheffield green. Sounds classy, right? But here's the kicker. These colors were meant to dazzle, but they often hide a multitude of sins. Rust spots are common around the trunk, rear quarters, and door sills, so if you find one in pristine condition, consider yourself lucky. The irony? This was supposed to be the peak of luxury, yet the build quality can be pretty dreadful. Now let's talk about the body lines. The slab-sided design is clean and minimalist, which I can appreciate in a world full of overstyled monstrosities. But those suicide doors? They scream for attention, and not always in a good way. Sure, they look cool, but good luck finding a mechanic who wants to deal with the complexity of those rear-hinged doors when they start malfunctioning. And let's not forget about the chrome bumpers. These beauties are integrated with overriders, which adds a certain flair, but they also have a tendency to rust out faster than you can say, pathetic horsepower. Now, about that horizontal grille with thin bars. It's iconic, no doubt, but it also feels like a half-hearted attempt at elegance. The grille should be the centerpiece, but it often gets overshadowed by the sheer bulk of the rest of the car. And let's face it, when a car is as massive as the Lincoln Continental, you'd expect it to have a commanding presence, but sometimes it just feels like a bloated whale with a tuxedo on. Let's not shy away from the fact that this car is trying hard to be a statement piece, but with its quirks and flaws, it often ends up being a comedic tragedy. The exterior might look grand from a distance, but once you start inspecting it, the reality hits like a ton of bricks. So, what do you think? Does the combination of that classic slab-sided look and the so-called luxurious colors make you want to jump in and cruise? Or does it just feel like a big, heavy, rust-prone mistake waiting to happen? Time to dive deep into the interior of this so-called luxury car, the 1961 Lincoln Continental. The first thing that hits you when you step inside is that unmistakable smell. It's a mix of vintage leather and old-school American craftsmanship, but don't get too cozy just yet. The interior is a love-it-or-hate-it situation. The full-width instrument panel is an attempt at elegance, but honestly, it feels like it's trying too hard. You've got a horizontal speedometer that looks like it belongs in a cheap diner rather than a luxury vehicle. I mean, come on, Lincoln, you can do better than this. The deep-dish steering wheel? It's almost comically oversized. What are we? Steering a ship. Now, let's talk about the leather bench seats. Sure, they're plush, but are they really that comfortable? I've had my share of road trips, and the last thing I want is to sink into a couch that feels like it's swallowing me whole. The front seat adjustment? It's there, but good luck finding the sweet spot. You'll either be too far back or too close to the wheel, which makes driving a bit of a chore. And then, there's the integrated center console. It features an ashtray and some storage, which is nice, but it's really just a reminder that this car is a relic of its time. Power windows? Yeah, they were a great idea back in the day, but let me tell you, those power window motors are prone to failure. You're better off cranking the window down manually. At least that way you know it'll work. The HVAC system? Don't even get me started. It can be as unreliable as a high school prom date. You'll be sweating bullets in the summer while trying to figure out how to get some cool air circulating. And if you're looking for a quiet cabin, good luck. The comically thick door seals are there to hide poor panel gaps, and they do a dreadful job of it. You'll hear every creak and groan this aging beast has to offer. Now, If you think I'm being harsh, it's because I care about you, my fellow car enthusiasts. The interior of the 1961 Lincoln Continental has its moments, but if you're looking for true luxury, you might want to keep searching. So, would I buy one? Only if I could overlook the flaws and focus on that brutal charm that comes with owning a piece of history. But honestly, you could do better. Now let's talk about the heart of this beast, the engine. When you pop the hood of a 1961 Lincoln Continental, you're greeted by the MEL 430 cubic inch V8. Sounds impressive, right? Well, hold your horses. While it's got a big displacement, it's almost a joke when you look at the numbers. With a gross output of 320 horsepower, it's not exactly setting the world on fire. In fact, if you compare it to the glory days of the muscle car era, this feels like a sad echo of a once great power source. The compression ratio? A pitiful 7.6 to 1. Seriously, how did we go from roaring V8s of yesteryear to this lackluster performance? Torque is where it tries to redeem itself with 465 pound-feet, which sounds good on paper. But let's be honest, when you have to rely on torque to save face, you know you're in trouble. This is the malaise era, folks, where the thrill of the drive took a back seat to emissions regulations and fuel economy. Remember when cars were meant to excite? This engine is just a sad reminder of what once was. And let's not forget the turbo drive automatic transmission. Sure, it's a decent piece of engineering, but it's not the legendary turbo hydromatic 400. I mean, come on. The best automatic transmission ever built just sits in the shadows while this one struggles to keep up. It's like putting a bicycle in a race against a motorcycle. You might as well be pushing this Lincoln down the road instead of relying on that sluggish setup. Now, performance-wise, this car takes a leisurely 10.5 seconds to hit 60 miles per hour. You could probably walk faster. And the quarter-mile time? 18 seconds. That's not just slow, that's downright pathetic. If you're looking for thrills, you'd be better off watching paint dry. So, what do you think? Is this engine a forgettable chapter in automotive history? It's hard for me to take it seriously when I know what it could have been. If I'm in the market for a classic, I'm not wasting my time with this engine disaster. For me, a car should inspire, not induce yawns. Would you really want to spend your hard-earned money on something that barely qualifies as a power plant? All right, folks, buckle up because we're diving headfirst into the mechanics of the 1961 Lincoln Continental. Now, when it comes to the transmission, we've got to talk about the turbo drive automatic. This isn't just any transmission. This is the Turbo Hydromatic 400, the absolute best automatic transmission ever built. It's like the King Kong of gearboxes, a powerhouse that can handle the torque from that monstrous ML 430 cubic inch V8 engine without breaking a sweat. But here's the kicker. Lincoln decided to throw a bit of shade on the competition by not using it properly. Instead of giving this beast the transmission it deserves, they've paired it with a rear axle ratio of 2.89 to 1. What does that mean for you? It means you're going to have a painfully slow launch that feels like an anchor is tied to your back bumper. Now, let's talk about the engine because that's where they were supposed to shine. The MEL 430 V8 produces a gross 320 horsepower, which sounds decent on paper. But when you realize that it only translates to a pathetic 190 horsepower SAE net, the reality hits hard. This is not the muscle car magic of the mid-60s. Instead, we're looking at a sad little engine that struggles to pull its own weight. With a torque rating of 465 pound-feet, you'd think it could at least get you to 60 miles per hour in a reasonable time. Instead, you're staring at a 0 to 60 time of approximately 10.5 seconds. That's not performance. That's a leisurely Sunday drive in a Sunday school zone. And if you think that's bad, just wait until you experience the handling, or lack thereof. The mid-60s were a golden era for cars that could actually handle the road. This one? Not so much. It's a lumbering giant that feels more like a boat than a car, which is ironic considering the sleek design. You might as well be steering a cruise ship. So, here's the bottom line. While the Turbo Hydromatic 400 is a shining star, the way it's paired with that underwhelming engine and a rear axle ratio that could put a rock to sleep is just downright embarrassing. if I were looking for a classic car, I'd demand a lot more than what this Lincoln Continental serves up. Would you really want to spend your hard-earned cash on something that feels like it's stuck in molasses? For me, that's a hard pass. Now, it's time to tackle what I consider to be a real sore spot in the two-ton beast that is the 1961 Lincoln Continental. Its suspension, brakes, and overall handling. Look at this. It's supposed to be a luxury vehicle, but the reality is far from the lofty promises. The Continental is built on a heavy chassis, and while it gave off an air of sophistication, you can bet your bottom dollar it didn't come with the sophisticated handling to match. The front suspension is a double wishbone design, which sounds impressive, but in practice it's a different story. With a car this weighty, you'd expect some level of performance, but what you get instead is a wallowy mess that feels more like a floating barge than a refined automobile. The rear suspension, also a solid axle, doesn't do much to improve the situation. You might feel like you're gliding over bumps, but that's just the car's way of telling you it's struggling to keep itself composed. It's like trying to run a marathon in a pair of clown shoes. Good luck with that. And the brakes? Ugh, the brakes. Lincoln decided to go with power brakes, which is great in theory. But here's the kicker. They can be notoriously unreliable. You might think you're hitting the brakes, only to be greeted with a soft pedal and a moment of sheer panic as you ponder whether you'll stop in time. For me, a car that can't stop when you need it to is an absolute deal breaker. The last thing you want is to be barreling down the street in a hulking piece of heavy iron that can't even manage a decent halt. Now, let's talk about the handling feel. If you've ever driven a classic car from the mid-60s to early 70s, you know that they handle much, much better than this boat. The steering is vague, and the body roll is excessive. You'll feel as if you're steering a ship rather than a car, and that's not exactly the kind of experience I'm looking for when I get behind the wheel. In summary, while the 1961 Lincoln Continental might have the looks and the swagger, when it comes to suspension, brakes, and overall handling, it's really a letdown. If you're after something that can actually deliver a decent driving experience, this isn't it. So, what do you think? Would you risk it behind the wheel of a car that feels like it's more about show than go? So, what's the verdict on the 1961 Lincoln Continental? Let's talk reliability. This car is often touted as a symbol of American luxury, but let me tell you, it has its fair share of issues. First off, the rust problems are downright embarrassing. Common rust spots can be found in the trunk, rear quarters, and door sills. If you're considering one of these beauties, prepare for a treasure hunt under layers of paint just to find the rot. And don't even get me started on the electrical system. Those power window motors are notorious for failing. You might feel like you're in a game of chance. Will they work today? Or will I be cranking my way to the drive-thru? Now, let's shift gears to the HVAC system. It's a gamble, folks. It can be downright unreliable, requiring more visits to the mechanic than you'd like. You'll want to have a good relationship with your local repair shop if you plan to own this classic. But here's the kicker. Despite its flaws, the 1961 Lincoln Continental is still a head-turner. Those suicide doors, absolutely iconic. You roll up in one of these and heads will spin. The sheer size and the unmistakable presence of this car command respect on the road. Now, if you manage to find one in good condition, you might be looking at auction prices that can soar to as high as $50,000 or more. It's a brutal charm that comes with owning a piece of history. But remember, it's only original once. If you find one that hasn't been butchered, you've struck gold. Despite all its mechanical shortcomings, the legacy of the Lincoln Continental is undeniable. So, would I spend my hard-earned cash on this? If you can find a pristine example at a reasonable price, I'd say go for it, despite its plethora of issues. It's a slice of Americana that's hard to resist, with an unapologetic character that stands out in a sea of modern blandness. But tread carefully, because if you buy a rusty, poorly maintained version, you might just find yourself regretting that decision. Are you ready to take on the challenge of owning a classic? If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a like. Leave your comments and impressions. Your opinion is very important to me. Until next time.